Thank you all for being here today. I'm here today to talk about reflection, and we're going to create this thing. Yeah, we got this. All right, or how to reflect while steering a raft through a waterfall. Because I'm going to get a little into why it's a little difficult for me to reflect, but why I find it important to do anyway. So let's talk a little bit about what reflection is. So reflection is sort of taking all the chaos of your life, the observations, the actions, the choices, the people in your life, and how do you kind of filter that or align it with your values, your needs, your desires, your goals? What we need to do is we need to think about all those things, all that chaos, and we start to go, what do we want to keep? What do we want to change? And what do we want to say goodbye to? What is not serving us anymore? And why reflection is important and why we need to do it is it's helping us inform our future choices, our future actions. It helps us become more self-aware, and it helps us get more grounded. So without reflection, we're kind of just like floating around in chaos. Problem with reflection for me is this is my brain every waking hour of every single day. It's just a constant stream of nonsense layered with a soundtrack of whatever music stuck in my head right now. It's all that jazz and all that jazz. I'm even distracted now. Like I see, like, oh my God, Corey, I love your pink shirt. Like I'm just like right now, even in the middle of this. So the problem with all that thinking that's going on is just surface level, right? It's just like little ripples on top of the water. I'm not really going deep. They're just passing through. With reflection, I'm supposed to take that time and go deeper. Pick one of those thoughts or a few of those thoughts and go down deeper and see what is it I need to learn from that experience. So when we're talking about this stream of consciousness that's constantly going through my brain at all times, I need to figure out what to choose. I need to have some discernment on how to decide what I'm going to do next. But these are some of my obstacles. One, I'm much like that dog, and up, just squirrel, squirrel, all the time, right? I was late diagnosed with ADHD a couple years ago, explained a lot. I also wear a number of hats, as was kind of mentioned. I'm a wife, I'm a mom, I'm a small business owner, I'm on volunteer boards, I hang out with my friends a lot, I'm a doctor, the list goes on, right? And then I have a little case of what's called FOMO. And when that word came out, I was like, oh, that's me. And I just don't say no. You want me to, if you have some crazy idea, roller skating, sure, I'm on board, I'm your girl. Doesn't matter what this is actual gift a friend gave me. Doesn't matter the idea, I'm on board. And that came a little bit out of like a little bit of isolation I experienced in my childhood and was sort of ready to go like, oh, you know what? I never want to miss out on anything again. But the problem with all of that is that when I have all that going on, and it's enjoyable and it's fun, but I also get very scattered. So I gotta listen to that voice inside of me that's telling me, you need to stop and reflect. And that little voice kind of came out, I referenced, well, I moved to Puerto Rico when I was young, so check out that fro, y'all. Oh my God, it's so good. Actually, I would love to have that now. I hated it then, I would love to have it now. Anyway, so this is me about 10, 11 years old. We had moved to Puerto Rico when I was 9, and it was a really rough experience at first. Again, it was very isolating. I didn't speak the language. I didn't know anything about it. Even though my family is originally from there, we were moved 2 hours away from my family on the island, so it was just really hard. And my parents were very stressed out. My dad had a new job. My mom was trying to figure out what to do with us. And so I started taking time to observe because I was trying to regain control over my situation, as most children would try to do, and trying to get myself to feel safe and calm. So I started noticing just like cause and effect and patterns, right? If I act this way, it gets this reaction. If I help out in this way, my mom seems to feel this way, right? So I just kind of kept quietly observing. And as I was doing that, what was happening is this voice inside of me was kind of developing and saying, hey, this is a situation where you need to pay attention and see how maybe you can change action or change course. And so that voice started developing there, and that's kind of like what I'm listening to now when I'm discerning. Another little tool I use to kind of get through my stream of thoughts and things like that is compartmentalizing. Ooh, girl, I love to compartmentalize. I just like to stick things in a little box. I like to stick things in a little box, and I just go, ooh, we're just going to deal with that later because we got other things to do right now, as noted, all the other things I listed. But one great thing about compartmentalizing is that I can get through some tough times pretty easily. My friends are pretty like, no, you never really seem that anxious. I'm like, I already forgot what happened. So it's pretty cool. So I put it in that little box and put it away. And I get through some really hard times, and I'm like, it's fine. But as you can see in the picture there, it's really hard to keep compartmentalizing because there's lots of little boxes in there. And what's happening is I'm not reflecting. I'm not stopping to reflect, and I'm going to make the same choices and continue the same actions that may not always be good for me. For example, we're going to take a little trip down memory lane to when I moved to New York City. And it was not for my boyfriend at the time, who's now my husband, no matter what he says. I was going to move there anyway. But I went to school to be a teacher, and even when I was in school to be a teacher, the little voice inside of me was like, I don't know if you want to do this. You're not really a morning person. And I was like, it's fine, we're going to make it work out. I take a year off after college because I'm like, well, you're not ready to teach yet. You go do AmeriCorps, find that husband, and then you were going to go teach. AmeriCorps is over. I lived with my parents for about 3 weeks, and I'm like, I'm good. I'm going to go get a job in New York. So I get to New York with absolutely no place to live, no job, and no money. And that voice inside of me was going, hey, do you think this is a good idea? And I was like, it's fine, we'll get through it. It was saying, don't do it, it's fine. And I did get a job. I got a job 3 days before school started. That's cool. I did get an apartment. I couch surfed for a while, but I finally did get an apartment. And after about 2 to 3 months, I finally got paid because of a glitch in the system. I didn't ask for help. My little voice was like, hey, maybe you should talk to someone about this. I was like, I got it. But I finally did and finally got paid, right? So did I get through it? Sure. Was I fine? Sure. But maybe if at any point, instead of compartmentalizing, I had stopped to listen to that voice inside of me, maybe it could have been better than fine. Maybe I didn't have to rush to get a teaching job. Maybe I could have found a different job in New York. Maybe I could have done something else that could have taken me down a different path. But instead, I was just like, you got this, you're good, you're fine. And so I really started realizing as I'm getting older, reflection is something really important to pay attention to. It's something that we really need to start doing and just stopping and pausing in our life to do it and listen to that little voice inside of us. Now, when I don't reflect, I find that all those little boxes get a little stressed, and I turn into a Hulk baby. Or temper tot, as is actually called, but I call them Hulk baby. So whenever those little boxes start stacking up, instead of just like taking one out and like thoughtfully reflecting about it, I just get mad about whatever it is I want to be mad about in that moment. And then I just need to hide away for a little bit. Again, ask my husband, he knows. I hide away for a little bit, and I just sort of, get quiet and clear everything out. But I'm not exactly reflecting. I'm just sort of clearing things out for more boxes to go in there later. It's not really helpful to do that. And now I'm at this point in my life where I am kind of being forced to reflect for several reasons. One, I'm midlife. I know my skin looks great, but I am actually 45. But thank you. So I just have this moment in my time where, you think back about the choices you've made that got you where you're going, or you are, and what choices are you going to make to get you where you're going. And there's one other thing that's forcing me to reflect now, and we're going to get on my soapbox about perimenopause and menopause. Get ready for some talking points right now. I don't know, maybe not all of you knew I was going to talk about this, but we're going to talk about it for like 5 minutes. You can hold on. For those of you who are not aware, menopause is the time when the menstrual cycle ends for people who have a uterus and ovaries. That means no more periods, no more having babies, right? Or the ability to have babies. Again, just as I'm going to go through this talk, I'm telling this from the perspective of a cisgender woman who is heterosexual, a brown woman, right? I can only give it from that perspective. The information and the experiences of those who are non-binary and trans are probably even more difficult and are not even being heard enough. So I just want to keep that in mind as I'm going through this. But, let's go back to the Golden Girls. So the Golden Girls were, when I was growing up, this is all I really knew about menopause. I thought it happened in your 50s, which was so old. And I thought you just ate cheesecake and had hot flashes. That's really all I knew up until my mid-30s. So I don't even know when I heard the word perimenopause, which is the part that leads into menopause. It can actually last 10 years. It can start as early as 35, or more likely around your 40s, and last 10 years. And I didn't even hear about it till I was in my mid-30s. A lot of things of kind of where I found this information is just sort of noticing my own patterns of symptoms, like heavier flows, inconsistent periods, just getting like very emotional about certain things that I didn't always do, more migraines, things like that. And then I would talk to my friends and they're like, oh, that might be perimenopause or menopause. And I was like, what are you talking about? And then starting to read some articles whenever I could find them, maybe books here or there, and I got a lot of information from TikTok. And I'm not encouraging that's where you should actually get information, but it's a good place to at least start asking questions and be like, ooh, I maybe need to talk to my doctor about this just to double check. One place I didn't get information was my doctor. My doctor still hasn't talked to me much about menopause. I was just talking to someone today about how they had to wait 7 months to get in with an endocrinologist just to get some answers for themselves. So actually last year I went to my annual physical and I'd met with the PA and I was like, well, I'm 44, I would like to get some information about menopause. And she's like, and perimenopause, and she said, you're too young. And I was like, cool, 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 cool. I'm gonna go see the doctor next year. So, and what's wild is that all the symptoms of perimenopause, there's a lot of symptoms, and I don't even think this is all of it. And what's wild is to think that people who are experiencing perimenopause and menopause can have these symptoms happening to them, and they may not even know why. You may not even understand what is happening to your body and what it could be doing to you. And what makes it even worse is that there's a risk associated with perimenopause and menopause. You're greater risk of heart disease and stroke. You have a greater risk of osteoporosis and other conditions, age-related conditions. And and it could be things like you have high blood pressure. You could have had low blood pressure in your entire life, been eating everything you're supposed to eat, and suddenly your blood pressure spikes. And we're not being told these things. We're not being told to look out for this. And there's no real clear treatments on all of this, partially because the way the system is set up right now, researchers realize that about 75% of age-related diseases are influenced by menopause. 75%. But only a tiny bit of the research going into this is being done for menopause and studying people that experience menopause. And in fact, when I say a great majority of research not being done, it's actually like 99% is not being done. So out of all those age-related studies, only 1% is looking at the cause and effect of menopause. And what are the consequences of that? People who are experiencing menopause don't understand what to do about it. We don't know what the treatments are. We don't know what's the best way to go. Everything we're being told, being told two things. Hormone replacement therapy, that's the way to go. Oh, but it may cause cancer if you have this, right? We don't know where to turn, and we don't know what to do, and it's because it's not being studied enough. So what I'm challenging people here before I get off my soapbox, I'm gonna challenge you all here today, and I'm including the men in this, anyone who's not experiencing menopause, including you, we need to start being allies for each other. We need to start demanding that our doctors talk about this. We need to start demanding that our elected officials talk about this, that they start providing the funding that's going to look into this research so that a next generation doesn't have to deal with having hot flashes that are so bad you have to leave a room, right? We need to start working together, and that means cisgender women also looking out for our trans and non-binary folks as well. We all have to work together. So that's the end of my soapbox. We're gonna bring it back to me. All of this reflection, where my body is sort of forcing me through some of these rage bubbles sometimes, to reflect, right? I'm reflecting about my new body. I have a new body that's changing. I have new emotions that are kind of bubbling up. And it's time for me to take this reflection and start thinking about what are these sort of repeated patterns in my life? What are these repeated thoughts and these circles I'm getting around in my life? And how am I gonna change it? Or what am I gonna keep? What am I okay with? I'm getting much more serious about listening to that voice inside of me and clearing out those boxes in my closet. Another interesting part of this time of life, that's my 13-year-old daughter, but I'm using her baby picture to protect her privacy. She is now going on the other side of this. It's a literal reflection, right? Like she is on the other side and she is just starting this journey. And what does that mean for her? I mean, when she got her period, I kind of felt like, sorry, kid, like, it's so annoying. Like, I don't know what to tell you. Like, it's painful, it's messy, it's expensive, like, it's the worst. Good luck. We'll talk about it whenever you need to. But it also becomes her body is now a political object. So no matter where people stand, she still needs to think about where her body stands politically, what she's allowed to do and where she's allowed to do it, which is a whole other level that my son is not going to have to deal with. And also, she's also part of the male gaze now, whether she likes it or not. It doesn't matter whatever her orientation ends up being. Like, she's going to be looked at as an object, as someone who is maybe possibly desirable. She should be producing children. Whatever that is, she is now part of this whole different world that I need to talk to her about and guide her through. Some of the things I do want to tell her about is cycles, right? Pay attention to, obviously, her menstrual cycle, but also some of the cycles of life. You want to take that pause and you want to think about that own little feeling of discernment that she's hopefully developing, which I do think she is. She is, making sure that she's taking a pause to think about what's good for her and what's nourishing her against her values, her goals, her needs, and desires. And I want her to ask questions. I want her to ask questions of me, of her father, of her teachers, especially her doctors. I want her to ask questions and not be scared. And most importantly, I want to say, believe yourself. And not believe in yourself. That's different. That's confidence. She's got plenty of that. I said, believe yourself. And what believe yourself means is when that voice inside of you is saying, this is not good for you, this is not safe for you, or whatever it is that's trying to tell her, believe yourself. Because yourself, your body is trying to take care of you. It doesn't care about anybody else but you. So listen to yourself when you need to. Oh, wow. You're the best. Oh, my God. All right, so shedding. This time of life is also about shedding, not shedding weight, but shedding other things. I've been going through all this reflection, and as I'm reflecting, we remember that beginning of this talk, I talked about what are you going to keep, what are you going to get rid of, all that stuff. There's a lot I'm shedding. One thing I'm shedding is a lot of F's. I'm keeping it family friendly. I have no F's left to give, okay? They're leaving my body on a daily basis. They're flying around the room right now. I'm sure some of you have also shed some F's throughout the day, right? As I'm getting older, I don't really care as much about being polite. Someone else's comfort is not more important than mine, okay? I can be polite, but I don't always have to be nice, right? Next slide. As I was getting ready for this talk, I found that you should take a picture. I found this note I had written like almost exactly a year ago, and I don't know who ticked me off that day. It was not you. I don't know who ticked me off that day, but they certainly no F's that day. And I just wrote this down. And the one that really most powerful for me is you are not entitled to our time, energy, and talent. And that's something I have to keep reminding of myself, is that if I'm not feeling it, if that discernment is telling me that's not for you, they are not entitled to my time, energy, or talent. Also, when we think about reflection and shedding, I'm kind of shedding just like, I don't need to force relationships that I don't want to be a part of. I don't need to be polite. I don't need to be nice. I don't need to be like, oh, but they might be a good connection for whatever. If I don't want to spend my valuable time with somebody, I don't need to. And this is the part I can never get through without crying, but all these people in my picture, and not all my weirdos are pictured, so don't feel bad if you're not in my picture, but they all are a reflection of my values, and I'm a reflection of theirs. And we all uplift each other, and that's what I need in my life. So moving on, because I'm going to cry. Okay. Next. I am also getting rid of the I shoulds of my life. I should have been at this point in my career. I should be thinner. I should be doing this. I should have traveled here by now, right? I'm getting rid of those I shoulds because it's one thing to reflect back on your life and think about the actions and the choices and what you want to get rid of and what you want to keep. But it's also another thing to wallow in it and be like, oh man, I should have been doing this instead of that. I could have had that career, right? I'm not going to sit there. I'm not going to I should anymore. I'm just going to enjoy where I'm at and adjust, course correct for the future. And with all this reflection And all these thoughts that have been kind of swirling around in my brain for the past, 5 years, especially since I've experienced perimenopause, but also just hitting this point in my life. My kids are older. I just have more time to sit and reflect. I've been shedding all this, and it's been very healing in a lot of ways. Putting those boundaries up, those F's flying around and leaving my body. It's really giving me time to look more at myself. The downside to that is that looking at myself in this deep way kind of makes me feel a little scattered. Because past Nydia made some choices that's leaving current Nydia a little overwhelmed. So I just need a little bit of time to figure it out. So that's something this year, I kind of surprised myself, and I signed up for a time management class with Jenna Pichet. If you ever get a chance, ask me about it, because it was really great. And why I did it is I really wanted to reclaim my time. Maxine Waters, she's the best. I wanted to reclaim my time. I really needed to get back to a place where I could get organized and not feel overwhelmed. But what was really interesting about this class is I just want to get through my email, my to-do list. That's all I'm looking for. But she was really making me think more and reflect more about what are the choices I'm making in my life and how do they align with my goals, values, needs, and desires, right? She was really making me do that before I can get into why is it so important you clear out your email, right? How is it so important to get these tools together? So she was really helping me get through that first. One of the tools that we used that I found really useful was this little Post-it note, and it's just put your goals where you can see them. And it's so simple, and I know a lot of you probably do it, but it was mind-blowing for me, okay? It's just put them where you could see them every single day. And some people do vision boards, and that's amazing, but I didn't give myself time for that. But I love a Post-it note. Ooh, do I love a Post-it note. So I just stuck my Post-it note, and that's my little workstation right there, and you can see, and I can see what my quarter goals are, what my New Year's resolution is, that my sister-in-law makes us do and I love. So I just keep it there, and it helps me remember what am I working towards for real? Not just what feels good in the moment or it's fine, I can get through it. What actually am I working towards? And it becomes a little filter, because I could just glance up there and be like, is that really serving what I said I wanted to do? If not, then I don't need to do it. Or if it is serving, awesome, let's say yes and let's go, all steam ahead, right? Another tool that was really useful is changing the story. So when I get into rage baby mode, I tend to tell a story, whatever it is, right? It could be ooh, I don't like how she said that to me, and I bet she thinks that I'm so dumb, and I don't work hard, and ooh, she's gonna find out, and the next time I see her, I'm gonna say da-da-da, and I am spinning, and I'm getting so mad, and I am just ooh, the next time I see them, I'm gonna be so mad, and they're at home watching TV. They don't even know what I'm spinning about and what I'm getting mad about. And what that actually is me just projecting my own weaknesses and what I'm uncomfortable with on somebody else. So one of the big tools was change the story, right? So when we change the story, we can really start saying, okay, what if she doesn't think I'm dumb? What if you're really smart? What if you were really smart and you worked really hard and you came up with a great solution? And you just need to help her see that. And maybe that's how I changed the story. And then what happens is it clears the clutter of all that anger and all that sort of self-loathing, I'm thinking I'm so weak or whatever. And it says instead oh no, I'm actually good enough for this. And I can come into the next interaction being much calmer, being much more open, and being much more observational. And let me tell you, this is the simplest thing ever, and it works so well. I can't get over how easy it is if I just flip the script a little bit. I'm oh, I feel great about this, and now it helps me get back aligned to my values and desires. So a little bit I'll challenge you to kind of do some of the same thing, is how are you going to think about what are the things you really want, your goals, your values, your needs, your desires, right? I want you to write those down if that's what feels good for you, or vision board, or whatever it is that feels good for you. And then start filtering things through that. Start filtering it through what is that experience and did it align with what's important to me? And change your story. What I find is that when I'm believing myself, the reason I change my story is to believe myself more. So that little voice inside of me that is saying, take the chance, or do the thing, or take the time to spend more time with your family, change the story so that I can do that. So I don't have to keep saying, well, you're too busy, and you have too many obligations, and you'll let everybody down if you don't do this thing, so you really don't have time to spend more time with your family, or be more creative just for fun. You got too much going on, you just can't do it, right? Instead, I can change that story to say, no, you do have time. You can find the space. You don't have to say yes to everything. You deserve to be able to have that time with your family. You deserve to be able to create just for fun, and it doesn't have to be attached to anything else. I want to believe myself, and I want to change that story. I'm going to believe myself when I say, I want to travel more, and I'm going to make that time. I'm going to believe myself when I say, you know what, that's not worth your time, and you could be spending that time with your kids. That's what I want to go forward with. In my 40s and beyond, I want to start changing that story so everything just becomes more authentic, more just happier for me, and I'm getting there through reflection. So thank you so much for that. And before I go, I want to thank Aaliyah, right there, who helped me get through this. And of course, all of Creative Mornings. Annie couldn't be here, and the two of you. So thank you so much. Oh, right here.
Yeah. As someone else who was late diagnosed to ADHD, how do you think that formed just the way you took on your own endeavors before and after?
Ooh, great question. So being late diagnosed ADHD, how did I kind of take on endeavors differently? I honestly started owning it more, and I think that was part of this reflection and being more reflective is I didn't feel like, oh, things were just happening to me, or I'm not good enough or smart enough or organized enough. I thought I was disorganized. It turned out I'm super organized. Just to get through basic life, I have to do a lot just to get there. So all these things I thought were weaknesses, I started realizing were actually really great strengths. And I started being like, oh, I can actually control this. I have decided to take medication, which I take when I remember because I have ADHD. And that's a little hard, but it does give me that ownership to say, and it also gives me forgiveness, right? So if I'm saying I didn't quite get to that, but I'm working really hard and I'm trying it and I'm okay with that now. And before it was just much more stressful and just this spinning feeling of just not enough, not enough, not enough. So I hope that you're feeling the same way because it really was, I didn't expect to be so impacted by the ADHD diagnosis, but I loved it. It was great. I tell everybody.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm going to take that one. Other questions? Yeah, Rachel.
Hey.
I recently went to my doctor and I had a conversation about perimenopause, and she described it as a second puberty, and
Cute.
it took the air out of my body.
That's cute.
And so it just, I feel like I really appreciate you talking about this openly because there's so many people who have experienced it or are about to or are in the thick of it, and it's so terrifying having it be this mystery ghost period of time. And the way that you just talked about it really resonates. So I just want to say thank you.
Oh, thank you for saying that. I'm sorry your doctor said that to you because rude. It's not anything like going through puberty. As I mentioned, there's some very serious health risks involved. There's very serious disruptions to women's lives. Some women lose jobs over menopause because people, oh, she's too irrational, or her physical symptoms, she can't handle it, whatever, right? Or they can't handle it. So this is a real issue, and this is part of just the erasure of it. Once we reach a certain age and we're kind of not in that male gaze as much anymore, we're just sort of thrown to the side a little bit and just made invisible. So that's why I'm so passionate about this. This poor woman in our wine club, she's 34, and she has to listen to all of us talk about menopause, perimenopause, and we're like, you're welcome. You're gonna thank us in 5 to 10 years, and you're gonna tell all your friends. Because that's what we need to do. We need to do that as people who are experiencing it and be a village and tell that story going forward. So thank you.
All right. Any other questions? Yeah.
Oh.
What can men do wife is sort of getting to that age.
Yeah.
But like, what can we do to be outspoken for you to make sure, whether it's doctors, like what's the thing you need us to do?
Yeah. Well, you can ask my husband who's right behind you. I'm just kidding. He's a great ally. But that's a really great question, and thank you for asking. I think one of the first things is believe women or people who are experiencing it when they say what they're experiencing, right? Like, that's first things first. Believe us when we're telling you that this is hard and it hurts and it's frustrating and we feel out of control too. Also, I would also say talk to your elected officials. They're not talking about this enough. I went to one event for somebody and she brought up menopause and everybody started clapping. She was just like, I want to get more money to fund studies about menopause. And women from ages 25 to 76 were just like applauding because we're finally like someone actually sees us who's in a position of power to do something about it. So I would say talk to your elected officials, start pushing them on like what are the funding, where are we getting help for healthcare in this particular area, and start pushing them to talk about it and pushing them to do something about it. So with doctors it's a little harder, but I'd also encourage your wife or any other people in your life experiencing this, tell them to talk to their doctors and push their doctors. Because that's the other thing, is that it's helpful if you have an advocate on your side who's even, just your husband, just saying, no, you should go back and you should fight for what you think is wrong with you, right? If you're feeling something bad, go back and fight for it and just be an ally. So thank you for that question. That was really great. You're already on the first step, asking questions.
All right. One more time for Nydia. That was
Oh, thank you, everybody. Thank you. Oh, you're such a hugger. I love you too. Thank you. Thank you.